Hey, there's Texas. Hey, buddy, how you doing, man? Let's see if we can hear. Okay, you got to
Can you
unmute.
hear me?
Yes, I can, sir. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, man. So tell me, how did you get red pilled?
Oh, geez. I don't. How do you have all night?
I've got half an hour.
Okay, I'll be quick. Okay, so I will admit that I was a normie cuck for a very long time. Very, very long time. I'm very recent, actually. For me, I'll put it this way. I was not on the Trump train until probably August of 2016.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm really recent. Like I'll put it this way. I was I bought into the BS about Trump, Nazi, all this other stuff. And what happened to me was I was actually looking towards some of the other candidates after Trump got the nomination. And what happened is I actually was looking towards Evan McMullen. I know. And I was looking towards Greg Johnson. And what happened is the more I listened to everybody else, the better Trump sounded.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how I first got introduced to Trump and Trump train and all that other stuff. And what really happened to me was I would say going to the election, I said, I'm going to go with Trump. And then over time, I think the things that woke me up, I don't know the exact moment. I think I know where it was. I think it was right around April of last year. I was really into kind of what is now the skeptic community, liberalist kind of thing. And I remember a guy named Teal Deer. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a really smart guy. He made a video response that was basically taking the piss out of the skeptic community. Basically saying all these people do is make fun of things, but they don't have any answers. They just kind of make fun and just laugh at the world while it burns.
Yeah. And
so what happened is, while this is going on, I kind of got introduced to Tara McCarthy through Pizzagate. Through Pizzagate. No joke. That's how I got in a little bit of that aspect. And so through her, she introduced me to Greg Johnson. That's actually how I first heard from you. Was I heard about Greg Johnson, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I do a Google search. That's the first time I find out about Luke Ford. So that's kind of how I first got introduced to you. I actually knew you before I was fully red pill, believe it or not.
Wow, that's funny that I helped introduce you to Greg Johnson in a sense.
Yes.
And when was this? Like a year ago?
Yeah, this would have been I would say probably right around maybe May of last year. I saw a few of your Torah talks, some of your guests, Kevin McDonald, among others. So I got introduced to some of these people through you, even though I know you didn't have the largest of audiences. You are one of the people that red pilled me.
Wow, and how old are you?
I am pretty damn old considering most of the people that get red pilled. I'm 37.
Okay.
Okay.
And did you know about like differences in IQ between different races before?
No, I really didn't. Like I said, it's been one big crash course, and there's a lot of these red pills. Actually, you and Tara McCarthy and Millennial Woes and people like that, I was introduced to them before even 4chan culture. Now I'm like addicted to 4chan.
Yeah.
but yeah, I think my story is probably more common, but probably most people don't want to admit it. I'll be honest with you. I've only had one other person that I trust that I've had this conversation.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I recently, not that it matters to anybody, but recently got laid off, and I'm looking for work, and I'm just so nervous about saying anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
not.
I'm not a dumb guy. I mean, I have a bachelor's degree, electrical engineering. So I was an R&D software engineer. I mean, I'm when you talk about, oh, this is a high IQ movement, there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
You make these jokes about what your IQ is. For me, every time I've done a test, I'm somewhere between 135 and 141. So,
Yeah.
but when I heard
Wow.
about, when I hear about race and IQ and all this other stuff, and I think the thing that sold me was a lot of things in my life did not make any sense when it came to interacting with people and politics until you just summed it up. Everything starts from race. Everything starts from group dynamics.
Yeah.
Everything does. Once you realize, yes, you may find your Thomas Sowell, Walter E. Williams, or whatever, but the way I like to think of it is, in the end, you're tied to where your base person is, and you can stretch a tether in any direction, but in the end, you are what you are.
Yeah.
You're not going to go that far away from it.
Yeah, I say race is everything, and of course I'm exaggerating. You know, I'm a racial tranny. You know, I joined Orthodox Judaism. You know, I'm a religious tranny. You know, my genetics are Anglo-Saxon, but it is an overstatement to say race is everything. But it's it's almost correct.
Right. Yeah, and I mentioned this on a previous chat where I think it's interesting that a lot of the alt-right are the leaders are atheists, and I'll put it out there. I was raised Lutheran, Missouri Synod, so, but basically kind of your regular Catholicism almost. But I consider, like, I resonate with Richard Spencer when he says the term tragic atheist.
Yeah.
Where I really wish and want to believe it's in that, but I understand the importance of having some kind of social structure, belief system. It's almost like a handshake almost, where I could talk to someone and I know I can at least put myself in a position to understand who they are, where they're coming from, what lens are they looking through.
Yeah. Now, has anyone figured out you're alt-right, even though you didn't say anything?
Yes. A family member of mine did. He didn't state it. I would argue he's a pretty high IQ guy himself. He's definitely on the left as well.
Yeah.
This particular person, I kind of just. But there's another person. This is funny. I recently moved. I'm not in Texas. I'm actually in Connecticut, Eastern Connecticut. I call it Whitetopia. It actually is Eastern Connecticut is. But anyway, one of my roommates, not roommates, I don't have a roommate. I'm in an apartment complex, and one of the people who lives right above me, I just said hello to him, and I started having a conversation with him just because I'd never met him before. I said, hey, I want to be a part of the community. I want to. I moved here because I'm a romantic. I love the stacked stones. I love the kind of the hilly, mountainous kind of setup. I just love the colonial homes. You know, these are the things I just love. I love, and I said this to him. I said, I love being close to everything, but far enough away that I don't feel like I'm going to be invaded. And I also, and we started talking, and it was almost like we had our own language of being able to basically say good schools. And he was like, the guy's like, hey, I've been in the Army for 15 years. I know exactly where you're coming from. I was like, so he invited me to go. I haven't taken him up on it, but he invited me to do like some shooting lessons or whatever. I guess he teaches using weapons or whatever. So it's kind of interesting.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh,
anyway,
good.
I guess I should bring it back to you. So are there any ideas or things that you're wanting to talk about to bounce back and forth?
Sure. What? Tell me about your reading diet on the alt-right. Like, where do you start? Where do you go? Like, how much do you consume?
I will confess I am not a learned individual when it comes to like reading diet. I do, like I say, I go to 4chan. I always go behind the paywall, the TRS, things like that. I obviously the Warski lives, all this. I obviously Account of Currents, definitely do that. So those are the kind of the immediate alt right, more of like their podcast type stuff, the alt right politics and things like that. So most of my diet, I love living in this modern era on the sense I could consume stuff that that people do live streams or because what I'll do is I'll just turn it on and you know drive somewhere or you know it's like the podcast for me. So
Yeah.
So that's what I do. Most of my diet ends up being because I think that when you read something, at least for me personally, I get more from the vocals, the way people say it. Because sometimes you read something, at least for me, it gets lost in translation. But when you can hear how they say things and the context, I get a lot more out of it that you can't really write into words.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are different, you know, different people have different ways that they understand information best. And
yeah, for me personally, I have way like I guess you'd say I'm kind of like the Asian guy. I'm like way high on like the spatial stuff, on trying to put things together, see how they fit and the work, and that's kind of where my strengths are. The verbal aspect. That's not my strong suit.
Right.
So
what's your what do you want to know like about the alt-right, or do you still have questions, or like what is there anything that you're struggling with?
I will say this. If you want to know, I think of it as the new right, alt-right, and the alt-right, white nationalism. I think of it more as a continuum than I think of it as you are one or the other.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I would be somewhere in the middle. The way I would describe myself, and I'm willing to say it, I'm a pro-white identitarian who believes in the 4T words, and I do believe in talking about the woman question, the Jewish question, race is real, race and IQ differences, the bell curve, all that stuff. Right, but I'm not all the way to the point where you know the one drop rule. I mean, I'm not that guy. I'm not gonna you know LARP like that. You know, yeah. Like so I understand that you're gonna have some form of diversity. Like for me, if we can get back to 1965 demographics at some point, honestly, that's good enough for me as long as we learn the lessons of never again. Kind of like what Edok was saying the other night, you know, going through this trauma and then having our own mythos.
Yeah. Now, have you've taken in some of the internet blood sports, the debates? Which ones particularly impressed you?
I've seen almost all of them. I'm trying to think of the one that impressed me the most. Actually, there was one I didn't see. I've only seen like the Kronos clips of the Spencer Sargon debate. That's the only one I actually haven't watched them the whole way through. I actually was most impressed with Greg Johnson and Styx.
Yeah.
That one's the one I think I was the most impressed because it was the most in depth, and it was Styx, good faith, trying to critique Greg Johnson's vision of a white ethno state in the process of making that happen. And I like Greg Johnson because say what you will about the man, he will stand for what he says. He will explain it coherently. I mean, you may disagree with it for whatever reason, but I at least respect the guy. He's going down with the ship with exactly how he sees it. He's really thought this through, and I'm really excited. I do want to get a hold of this white manifesto or white nationalist manifesto, whatever it's called.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big Greg Johnson fan too for those reasons. He's very thoughtful. He's very analytical. He's very logical, and he does lay it all out. And I always get new insights when I read him. He also has a gift for explaining reality and summarizing difficult, knotty issues in just a few words, or using analogies or examples or stories that make the broader philosophical point, so much more real and coherent and immediate.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Ryan Falk, alt hype and Greg Johnsons of the world, they have openly stated they're homosexual, and I was wondering, do you think that that's a real issue, or do you think that's just people trying to virtue signal within the alt-right?
No, I think there genuinely is the homosexual question. I think in a healthy society, there should be no public expression of homosexuality. I don't, as I said, I have great respect for Greg Johnson, but I don't think that homosexuality should be allowed to be celebrated. They should not have gay pride parades. I mean, we absolutely have to just crack down on any form of grooming. It's got to be strongly stigmatized. So I basically agree with Andrew Joyce. He wrote 3 very powerful essays on the homosexual question.
I tend to agree with you, by the way. I was curious what your thoughts were on that.
And it's also convenient for me because it fits in perfectly with my Orthodox Judaism. Like, Orthodox Judaism is like very negative against homosexuality, particularly male homosexuality. And so, yeah, I agreed with what Andrew Joyce wrote in his 3-part homosexual question. Did you read Andrew Joyce's essays on the homosexual question?
I have not. I will have to look at it.
Yeah, go read that. Now, Andrew Joyce is absolutely brutal. Like, he's a brutal guy. Yes. Yeah. But he's very powerful. Like, I would not be surprising, if he became, 10 years from now, he is the most powerful, influential intellectual on the alt-right.
And then, of course, the other obvious question, drama, all the above, is the woman question, and what are your thoughts on that? Because I'll be honest with you, maybe I'm super red pilled or whatever. I'm more on the patriarchy side of that equation.
Yeah, well, it's like all questions. Like, different groups have different strengths, but female strengths are not at the voting booth. Like, generally speaking, I don't want women influencing public policy, and I certainly don't want women voting. And unless there's some test where we can see that a woman has agency, meaning that she's willing to take responsibility for her choices, then every woman has to be assigned to a man, like either her father, her brother, her uncle, her husband. Like, some man has got to take responsibility for her choices, as long as she demonstrates she is not able to take responsibility for her choices. And in my experience, the overwhelming majority of women are not prepared to take responsibility for their choices.
I totally agree with you. I'm trying to figure out how you can say this in a world where we have first, second, third wave feminism, and people think you're just like from the Stone Age. Like, I'm trying to figure. I mean, I'm willing to say it bluntly, but I'm not sure. I don't know if that's. I mean,
well, I think you should never ever say anything that someone can't hear. So, right. Never. Like, I never get into arguments. I never get triggered. I never piss people off. Maybe once a year I'll miscalculate. And I say, as you can imagine, I say a lot of blunt things, but I'm always taking into consideration my audience. And right. So I think that's very important. Never say anything anyone's not prepared to hear. And so there's like water cooler white nationalism, where you talk about illegal immigration and, you know, good neighborhoods, and you know, look at what all these immigrants are doing to our community, and you know, you start to get a feel where people are at, and so you don't just drop, you know, you don't drop big huge red pills on them.